I know that if you are interested in style stuff, you've definitely had this experience of what I call like a magical day where whatever it is that you're wearing, it just felt like perfect for the day. You felt so pretty. You were so happy. Like the sweater was perfectly red. You like the way you move. You like looking at your outfit. And you're just like, yeah, that was a good one. I think the thing is, you can have those kinds of magical days almost every single day with your style. And when I say that, it seems very fantastical, but it's super reachable. And I think the biggest reframe I have after years of working on giving people style advice is that what you need is not more like guidelines on what to wear or advice on how to do it. What you need is like help asking yourself the right types of questions and finding the right type of process for yourself. I think about it like with anything else. Like, for example, if you do exercising, some people they really like to lift heavy and they have like a plan where they do like legs and back and chest on different days. And some people do something where they follow like a YouTube calendar of exercises, and some people have a PT. Like, it doesn't really matter. It's not like one way of exercising is better than the others. It's just that you want to have some sort of a plan so you know what you're doing and there's a structure to it. And it's the same thing with the style stuff. It's not like there's one way to make style decisions that is superior to all others. It's just that if you find the way that actually works for you, then the way you do it makes you feel happier and it lets you reach more of those magic days more often. So, what I've done in these years is I've developed my own style framework, which I call the style key, and it's a framework that helps you figure out what is your way of making those decisions in a way that really works for you. Today, I'm going to talk about one part of that framework, which I call the starting point or the inspiration point. And in my framework, there's two starting points, 2 points of inspiration. There's the internal, the subjective self, and there's the external, the real context. I'm going to explain what these are and how to work with them. But before I do that, I'm actually going to talk about what the starting point, what the inspiration point even is, and why it matters, because I always get excited talking about the details, but I actually think for most people, don't really have like a typical starting point. If you do style, like maybe you just go to the closet and you just pick out like whatever suits the weather or what feels comfortable that day, or when you go shopping, again, you kind of like go to the stores and you pick out what you like or follow a trend. That's all fine. There's nothing wrong with any of that. What has been my biggest discovery and insight is that if we just like add at this point a layer of intentionality, of setting an intention, having a starting point that is considered and based on who you are, what you're about, like why you're doing it, the big picture, that is a pretty simple step to take once you practice it a bit. But that is what leads you to make the style decisions that make you really happy and give you that magical feeling where you're like, oh, this is so perfect. I'm so pretty today, like most days. And I also think when I say this, oh, there's a starting point, inspiration, it sounds like making something really complicated. So what I want to do is I want to give you an example, like a client example, to help you understand why I'm suggesting that you do this. So one of my clients, Elsie, she's a really high-powered, super successful like lawyer person. And Elsie came to me and she was like, what I really need help with are my clothes outside of work. I hate all of these things. I'm really like clothes. So I'm constantly like out and I'm trying and I'm grabbing like a few pieces that I think are cute, but it just never like coalesces into anything. I'm just always kind of grabbing things and I'm always feeling kind of like unhappy and kind of frumpy and not good. And for Elsie, this was really like a big contrast because it's that she had a really fancy law job and there was a very clear dress code and she really enjoyed dressing up into that. She was like the more dressed up person on her team, and like there everything was very polished, very clear. And then outside of work, it was really not feeling good for her, even though she was spending quite a lot of money and getting really nice clothes, but just somehow she was not happy with it. And for Elsie, like as we talked about kind of her goals and with the style and deeper reflections, like the bigger thing was that she wanted more to find a bit of her footing outside of work also, right? Because she was a person who had a very clear work identity, work success, and what she was searching for, that kind of inner threshold for her was just like, well, I'm also like, I have more dimensions to me as a person. And the reason the clothes were bothering her so much wasn't just because, okay, the sweater wasn't cute, but it was like kind of a way of working with that imbalance between the work and the private self. And so as we worked with Elsie, I was like, okay, but you should use the right style keys. So you should use the external starting point, the external point of inspiration. And so we talked about like what are some roles or contexts or identities that she finds like inspiring. Like how does she see like what are some of those labels that she might want to apply to who she is outside of work. And I'll say like she actually realized that she loved seeing herself as like a creative young person because she does not have a lot of time. But when she does have time, it's like, yeah, she goes to like drawing class, like really cool stuff like drawing classes, and she'll go to like art mingles, like events, things, and she'll like when she travels for work, she'll like make time to go see museums. And she actually genuinely really loves just like being a creative person and appreciating like the beauty and the creative side of life, which is why I also think she loves the style stuff. And then she was like, oh, but this is like an identity thing, like a role that I find super inspiring. And once we identified that as something that Elsie wanted to work with, then it was so easy for us to generate all these ideas. She was like, well, I could have these cool sculptural earrings. Here's some kind of like up and coming designer. So like, oh, if I have like this, if you know type print, and here's like this tote bag I got at this museum. And the ideas just really got flowing. And a lot of the things that she had bought before really worked for the new look. It was just that she just needed to kind of see it through this filter of like, oh, I want to create this kind of like artsy, creative young person look. And then everything just started coming together because the ideas were flowing. And I think that's what the starting point for me ultimately is about. It's not like, oh, if you identify this inspiration point, like everything is so perfect immediately, but it's about that, like if you have the right inspiration point, like if you're starting in the right place, then ideas are flowing. Like when you go to look at things, you actually spot things that you're interested in getting. When you go to your closet, again, like same thing, you like see some possibilities, opportunities, like you're excited to try things on, like you're just like in the flow, in the process. And that's a happy place. That's the place I want to help you be in. So it said for me there's two different inspiration starting points. There's the internal and the external. I'm going to talk about those and give you a bit more examples so you understand them. So let's start with the external because that's what Elsie, we already talked a bit about that. I call that role and context, and it's basically your starting point is thinking about what are the different like literal contexts that you move through, like geography, like what type of place do you work, what type of place do you live in, like do you spend a lot of time in like nature, for example, as a person, or do you live in like a big city? Thinking about the type of industry you work in, thinking about like your role at work. Are you like an ambitious young person? That's an example we're talking about. Also like bigger roles in life. One of the roles I want to talk about is a woman entering her 60s, right? That's like a social role that's not strictly delineated by any type of employment or person, but it's like a bigger picture kind of descriptor still of like the role through which you're moving. So people who like the external style logic, they're people who generally tend to value and really succeed in harmony in their style. So for me, harmony is not this like bland, pathetic, you're gonna disappear into the wall because that's what it means. For me, harmony means that you really arrive at ideas and you enjoy making decisions and you just enjoy doing things by placing yourself in relation to other things. So let's talk about the examples. Like, let's say you are an ambitious young professional in an office. For that person, thinking about like, I'm an ambitious young professional, like in like a top 4 auditing firm, like thinking about like, well, what do like ambitious young people wear? It immediately starts to get the ideas flowing, right? Like you think about, oh, what are those movies you watched when you were younger with the career ladies? And oh, they were wearing like these heels and they were wearing like blazers and they were wearing button-up shirts. And right away you're like, okay, well, I'm not going to wear a blazer and I'm not going to wear heels, but I could have like really cool flats and I could have maybe like a purse that looks kind of like expensive, and I could maybe have like button-up shirt that fits me really well in like a color that's like kind of classic but really flattering. And as you hear, like the ideas really start flowing, and that's like an obvious simple example for people who I don't think really struggle getting dressed for work, because there's a lot of visual examples, there's a lot of inspiration, it's pretty easy to find those things, and you're like off you go. And you of course have to figure out within that, like, okay, how do what silhouettes or fabrics I like, but the starting point is there. Like what types of things I'm looking for is very clear for you. So let me give you an example of a more diffuse role. As I said, like a woman entering her 60s, there's a very like unique role in life, right? Because you're free of the caregiving responsibilities mostly. You're established at that point in your work life where you feel like you don't need to be necessarily proving yourself, convincing people in the same way. You've gone through the menopause, so you're kind of like in a place with your body where it feels like things have calmed down and it's just like a new era. And I think for a lot of women entering this era, there's this feeling like, well, okay, that role sucks because that's the role where I'm supposed to like become some like invisible doormat who doesn't bother anybody. And this is what I'm talking about. Like, harmony is not about, okay, because that's how women maybe are supposed to be according to somebody. That's not what I'm asking you for. I'm asking you, like, when you think about this role, what ideas get flowing? And if you're a person who gets inspired by role and context, you're like, you know what? For me, this is a time, yeah, I'm free of the caregiving responsibilities. I can wear things that are a bit impractical, like all these light colored things. I can wear like novelty purses because I'm not carrying anything for anybody anymore. I'm in general like a person that doesn't have to like convince and prove my worth anymore, so I can maybe like have more fun with fashion. Like maybe I want to wear things that are more bold, like brighter colors. Maybe I want to wear like bolder jewelry, and I don't want it to be like the silly stuff I wear in my 20s. I want it to be like cool, like artistic, like sculptural costume jewelry, like cool bracelets or something. And yeah, I want to like show that women are allowed to take space and be seen. So I want to wear like bright colors or silhouettes that are a bit interesting. And as you hear, like again, like the ideas just start flowing. And from there, of course, this person you have to explorate. Okay, do you actually like big bracelets? Do you actually like sculptural earrings? Whatever. But the point is, like the vision has started flowing and it's fun to explore that. If you're hearing me talk about this and you're like, oh my God, Rita, like please, like seize all of this. I really don't want to do this. Then you probably have the other starting point inspiration, which is the subjective self. That's the internal world. So I was talking about how for the role and context people, they really like harmony and placing themselves in relation to. For you, the main value is autonomy, which doesn't mean like you live in some sort of imaginary world where nobody else exists and you make all the rules. But for you, placing yourself in relation to the expectations and the roles and whatever is just stressful because those factors like quickly really overshadow what you actually want, and the voices just get really loud and you kind of like lose the thread of what you want. So you're not thriving and vibing by placing yourself in relation to others. You're just kind of like, okay, where am I supposed to be? So for you, I recommend, as I call it, starting with a subjective self. So really, before you go into what's required, what are the rules, what's the weather, what are my constraints, like we all have that. But before you jump into all of those things, to think about, well, what's in me? Like, what about me feels really important right now? How do I start with that? Okay, this sounds abstract. Let me give you the two examples with the same exact examples we used for the right. So for the young professional person, as I said, for her, if you're using the subjective self-inspiration and you're like young professionals, again, it's stressful. You're like, oh my God, do I have to wear like loafers? Like, and what I would say is like, let's take a breath and let's think about like you at work as the young ambitious professional you are. What do you think you're really good at? Like that's a really good way to think about work stuff. And let's say you're like, well, I'm really good at kind of the soft power angle of it. Like I'm a really good mediator. We have to agree with things between ourselves and the client. It's a lot of like moving pieces. I'm the person who actually kind of gets everybody to soften. And because of that, it moves along really well, right? So kind of like a soft power presence. And I'm like, oh, like this is beautiful, like soft power. What does that look like? What does that feel like for you? And again, if you have subjective self, it's probably pretty easy for you to start thinking like, like what are the things I wear or could wear that would help me feel that way? Okay, well, like obviously like tonal dressing, like actually soft, like colors that are not like bland, but kind of like soft, rich textures in general. Maybe something flowy. Like I would love like maybe like almost like a poncho top that I wear over my button-up shirt, or like just like a scarf that's kind of draping. Maybe I want shoes that instead of like the click click click, they're like very thick soles. They're like really rubbery, so I feel very like grounded, and that gives me that presence. Right, again, as you hear, like the ideas really start flowing from the theme itself. Or going to our lady in her 60s, for her, thinking I'm a woman entering my 60s. It's like, oh my God. Again, like that role just gets so loud. It's like, well, here's what my mom wore, and here's what's expected, and blah, blah, blah. And you're not having fun thinking about that. So instead, we like put that on pause and just think about like, okay, well, who are you? What feels really important for you right now? And let's say for you, there's a really big feeling of freedom, which is a really big thing with the clients I work with. And I'm like, okay, yes, freedom. Like, what does freedom feel like for you? And it could be many things, but let's say for you, freedom is like, oh, I want to be free physically, I want to wear unrestricted silhouettes. I don't want to prove that I have like hips and a waist and like this and like that. I want to be free to move, or I want to be free to wear things that please me without worrying if it goes perfectly. So maybe I want to try that unflattering color or that pattern combination that's a bit surprising. Again, like as you hear, the ideas just get flowing from the concept itself, from identifying, oh, like there is this part in me, the freedom part, that I really want to explore through style. How can I explore that? The ideas start flowing. Okay, so there's like two things that you might be thinking as you hear me talking about this. First of all, very common to think like, well, Rita, I actually can relate both to using the subjective self and the role in context, and maybe I use a little bit of both. And then the second thing that I think is very common also to think when talking about is like, okay, Rita, like you literally work with these things. So for you, going from freedom to deconstructed shapes and fun pattern combinations is easy. For me, I don't know how I would move so easily from that point of inspiration to actual stuff I could wear. So on both of these things, like I don't want this video to be 40 minutes where I talk you through these things. I just wanted to name these concerns to say that those are kind of the two main things that comes up for people as I've been teaching this stuff for years to hundreds and thousands of people through my courses. And like my main answer is like this. If the idea of having a starting point kind of strikes you as interesting, I would recommend exploring my learning materials. They're completely free, they're beautiful, they're available on my website. I'm going to link it in the description below. I have like a very beautiful intro, like overview document, and then I have like a very cool, like I call it an adventure that takes, it's a few days and it takes you through these steps of really understanding the nuances of like, okay, if you do a bit of both, what does that mean? Or like, okay, how do you actually do this for yourself? Because ultimately, all of this is a skill that you develop, but it's not a very difficult skill. It really does not, I don't think from my experience, it doesn't require that much, but it does require kind of an open mind and really trying and actually practicing it a little bit. But the payoff is so worth it, because that's what I started the video with. Like the payoff, I think, is that you have so many more days where you're just like, yes, like I'm just so happy with what I'm wearing. And it's not because it's like literally the perfect outfit, but because it just suits me. It makes sense for who I am. It celebrates the magic of me, the gifts of me as a person. It fits my theme. It makes sense to me. And that's what I want for you. So that's what I really invite you as I end this video. I would invite you to think a bit about, as I was talking, whether the role and context is something that would be easy for you if you could make a list of the roles, the context in your life. Or if you were to make that list, if you would be like, okay, like I guess that's me, but that's not really me. Because that gives you a hint whether you're the role and context or subjective self. And if you think this is interesting, if it's sparking something in you, I would really recommend like don't let this just be kind of that insight added to the list of insights you've reached. I would recommend that you actually do go check out the materials and try it out, because as I said, it doesn't require a lot and the payoff is really big and it comes pretty quickly. So that's it for today. That's the starting point, the left right. There is one more dimension to the style key system, which is up down, and I'm going to talk about that in an upcoming video. So stay tuned and thank you for being here. Bye.